Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody. Welcome back to the fifth and final part of this U-boat series, the building of U99. Last time out we painted and got the boat pretty much finished. This time we are going to build a bespoke base for the U-boat to sit on. We are also going to make some decals and add the final touches to this build. So, without further ado, let's get cracking. First thing we are going to do is the bespoke base, starting with this custom nameplate and stand I created. These are both 3D printed in resin. If you are interested in a nameplate for any of your models, do drop me a message and we can see what we can do. Once the nameplate and stand are removed from their supports, cleaned up and cured, I move on to the base itself. The main structure is going to be made from foam. I start by mocking up the base to see what size I want it. Once I have the whole thing sussed out in my head, I start measuring and drawing the cut lines onto the foam. With my cut sizes set, I get out this ropey bargain wire cutter I got from eBay. It's not the best, but it does a job for now. I carefully cut along my lines with the cutter, using the side guard to ensure a straight line. I want to put an angle on my nameplate, so I draw the angle I want onto the foam, then attempt to cut this, again, with the wire cutter. Unfortunately, due to the skewed nature of the cutter, this was a bit of a disaster. My cut was horrifically wonky. I don't think I could have done all that much better with this cutter, so a repair job was the best way forward, so I get out the trusty filler and start filling in the gap and shaping the angle by hand. This actually worked to my favor, as it added some weight to the base which it was lacking before. I let the filler cure overnight before moving on to the next stage. With the main shape of the base complete, it's time to cut out holes for the stand to slot into. This is a case of carefully measuring the stand and transferring those dimensions to the foam, ensuring it's central and straight. To get the final lines, I press the stand into the foam, and this gives me an outline to work to. I then start cutting through the foam with a scalpel. To avoid destroying the top face to cut all the way through, I repeat the process on the underside so I can make two shallower cuts, which will meet halfway. This just ensures a cleaner cut both sides. To get the piece of foam out from the hole, I carefully push the stand into the gap and then push through with the blunt end of the scalpel. It's crucial to ensure it has cut all the way through, otherwise the foam will tear. The process is repeated on the other side. The final cutting to do is for the central support bar of the stand itself. To get the outline, I insert the stand and draw around the support to get my cut lines. I then cut the foam to the approximate depth I need. To get the foam out, I slice into rough little squares. This enables me to simply pull the foam out with a pair of tweezers. I then push the stand back into the foam block and test fit all the components to ensure everything is looking as expected. With the main structure of the base complete, it's time to laminate the surfaces. For this, I'm using an oak veneer offcut that I got from the trusty eBay. I start by tracing all the pieces I need from the base itself, then carefully cut out using a scalpel. I am being extra careful on the cuts against the grain, as the veneer is prone to splitting when cutting in this direction. I'm also cutting them out slightly oversized, as I will trim them down later on once fixed in place. When the pieces are cut out, I test fit against the base, then start the task of gluing them down. To fix them in place, I use PVA glue, applied and spread out using a palette knife, ensuring the whole surface is covered. I then tape the veneer down using masking tape. To ensure a good hold, I do both sides at the same time, then leave them for 24 hours with a weight on top. Once cured, I carefully remove the tape in preparation for the front and back pieces. The front and back pieces fit in between the sides, so I test fit first and trim down to size. Once at the correct size, the whole process is repeated, gluing and taping the front, then again on the rear. I also add a bit of PVA to the corners, just to fill any gaps and ensure a good hold. Once done, again I put a weight on top and let it cure for 24 hours. Now the sides are attached and cured, it's time to start trimming down the excess. It is important to take your time here, as we don't want to ruin what has taken 2 days to complete. Once trimmed, I sand smooth with some fine grit sandpaper. With the sides done, the same is done on the top, carefully shaving small amounts of veneer off at a time until it is level with the foam. Once level, again I sand smooth with the sandpaper. The nameplate is test fitted, and I make any adjustments to the front section of the veneer at this stage. When I have it fitting nice and snug in the gap, I move on to the final piece to the puzzle. The final piece is the top. I tape the front in place, then trace the size I need and carefully cut it out with a scalpel, again slightly oversized. To cut the 2 holes for the stand to go through, I tape the piece in place, then spray paint some primer into the gap. This gives me a template to cut around. Then it's just a case of very carefully cutting the holes out of the piece of veneer. The whole gluing process is again repeated on the top: glue, tape, and weight. Once cured, we can then trim it down for the last time, again being extra careful, shaving off small amounts at a time and sanding down with sandpaper. I ensure all sharp edges are sanded nice and smooth, ready for staining. For the stain, I am using this outdoor wood stain I'd left over from my desk. Just as you would a piece of furniture, I paint the whole thing in the stain, brushing along the grain until I'm happy with the finish. Laminating does take a fair bit of time, but worth it in my opinion. With that done, we now move on to painting the nameplate and stand, starting with a healthy coat of primer. I am again using this one-shot primer by MIG Ammo. It is important to prime resin parts. As with metal, paint can be prone to peeling off if unprimed. Next, I give them both a coat of XF1 flat black. This will darken the tone down and highlight both the U-boat and the text that I will paint later on. Whilst I let the base coats cure, I paint the inside tray of the stand, again in flat black. This will just hide any inner areas, just in case the fit of the nameplate isn't quite perfect. Now it's time to paint the lettering in gold leaf. This was a daunting task, as I knew I would have to take my time to ensure I don't mess it up. I start by painting straight from the jar, of which is not ideal on Tamiya colors, but I wanted a bold finish. I carefully stroke towards the outside of the lettering, focusing on the inside of the letter first. This worked well, but the paint thickness was making the process very slow, so I decided to decant some paint and thin it down with the X20A acrylic thinner. This makes it a lot easier to paint with, but can dilute the finish slightly. It did, however, greatly speed up the process, so I kept going with this formula. Eventually, I got it done, and all that was left to do was give both the plate and stand a good clear coat with this VMS satin varnish. This will protect them from scratches as we build the stand. Finally, I pushed the stand through and fit the nameplate to the front. I glued this in place with some super glue. And that's it. The Bespoke Base is complete, a vast improvement over the kit stand in my opinion. Now it's time to add the final touches to the boat itself, starting with the golden horseshoe that was welded to the conning tower. Next, some custom decals, the ones from the kit were missing, so I had to print my own. I created the artwork in Photoshop and printed the numbers and flag onto some decal paper, clear for the numbers, white for the flag. I then let the ink dry for a couple of days. Then I give them a good coat of varnish. If you don't do this, all the ink will run off when soaked in the water to release them. I let these cure for 24 hours. Now they are finally ready to be cut out and added to the boat, starting with the numbers. I let them soak in water and apply a little microset to the area. These went on surprisingly well, and I didn't have any need to add microsol or clear coat over the top. Next, the flag. I cut out the double flag I created, then cut a small piece of foil to sandwich in between. This will allow me to fold the flag and make it look droopy as if there was no wind. I wrap the decal around the flagpole with the foil in between, then start folding the flag, trying to make it look as natural as possible. It also allowed me to hide the evil logo somewhat from display, whilst keeping the flag authentic. After a fair bit of jiggery-pokery, the flag was in place. The final touch is to add the propellers. And that's it, U99 is complete. I've really enjoyed this build, taking me out of my comfort zone of building armor and trying something new. I am pretty happy with the results and learnt a few new processes along the way. If you have enjoyed the video or learnt a thing or two, please hit those like and subscribe buttons and let me know your thoughts in the comments. We will be going back to armor with the next project, so stay tuned for that. But for now, thank you for watching and happy modeling everybody.